The radio crackled like burning paper. I pressed my ear against the mesh speaker, the rust biting my cheek, and willed the static to arrange itself into words I already dreaded. For a few seconds, it was only hissing, like steam rising from a crack in scorched pavement. Then the voice broke through. His voice. Presidential. Practiced. Final. Effective immediately. All borders are sealed. No passage in or out. This is for your protection. That was it. No preamble, no apology. Just a sentence sharp enough to cut marrow. The transmission bled out into silence, leaving me with the hum of radiation in my Geiger counter and the thump of my pulse in my ears. I leaned back from the battered set, fingers dragging across its cracked plastic casing. Same cheap model my father had kept in the garage for storm season. I remembered sitting cross-legged on linoleum while he turned the dial, listening for tornado warnings back when storms were just weather. He'd always laugh when the knob stuck halfway and mutter about buying a new one. He never did. Neither did I. Now the knob stuck at the same halfway mark while the world outside dissolved, and I wondered if he'd laugh at that too. Click, click, tick. My Geiger counter swung on its frayed lanyard, the needle trembling between yellow and orange. The sound burrowed into my skull, insects chewing bone. I tapped the device twice, ritual, superstition, whatever you want to call it. 2 taps for luck, though luck had been rationed thinner than food since the meltdown. Checkpoint Tango, 7 stretched ahead like a tumor of steel. Twin fences, 12 feet high, layered with rust and razor wire that still managed to gleam under a sky the color of dirty dishwater. Between them ran a corridor of cracked asphalt, funneling straight toward the gate. Massive steel doors painted the bureaucrats beige that someone once thought conveyed official. But the gate was open. Not wide, 6 inches, maybe 8, but enough. Enough for rumor to spark, enough for hope to take root in a crowd already raw with hunger and radiation sores. They came in streams, those who still had the strength to walk. Pilgrims, refugees, survivors, pick a word, it all meant the same thing. A woman hugged a canvas bag to her chest like it was her child. Dark stains bled through the fabric, motor oil or blood or both. An old man dragged a suitcase with 3 wheels, the 4th spinning like a coin with every step. Children clung to legs, faces smeared gray by the dust that never stopped falling from the sky. I counted fence posts, 17 from where I stood. The ritual steadied me, made the tremor in my hands less obvious. Numbers still made sense. 17 posts. 6 inches open. 1 chance. The air was metallic, copper and ozone on the tongue like licking a dead battery. I forced myself to breathe slow, shallow. Everyone said it wasn't radiation, not yet. Just contamination. Just another word to make poison sound manageable. Gates open, someone shouted. The words rippled through the mass of bodies like a current through water. We surged forward, 100 different hungers and desperations pushing me with them. My backpack scraped my shoulders as elbows dug my ribs, and the smell of sweat and unwashed wool rose sharp as vinegar. Fear has a smell. Once you know it, you never forget. My boots slapped through shallow puddles. The water lay flat, mirror slick with rainbow oil. Pretty, if you forgot what those colors meant. Rule 1, or maybe Rule 2, the numbers blurred now. Never let contaminated water touch skin. I kept to the shallows, weaving between reflections that showed only gray sky and broken faces. A guard emerged from the booth. Young, maybe 25, his uniform hanging loose on his frame. Hunger carved into his cheeks like sculpture. He raised a hand, not threatening, not aggressive. Just tired. Stand back from the gate. The wave froze 50 feet from freedom. The crowd's noise ebbed into whispers, muffled sobs, the steady click of my Geiger counter. I felt everyone holding their breath at once. The guard scanned us with the precision of someone trained too fast and worked too long. His eyes landed on backpacks, on pockets, on hands gripping children too tightly. I knew that look. I'd seen it in the camps, in the processing centers. The look of someone who had orders and no power to change them. Orders are orders, he called out, voice cracking from overuse. Borders closed. Go home. Home. The word lodged in my throat like broken glass. Behind me, a woman started to cry, soft and animal, and the old man with the suitcase turned away first. Shoulders bent, dragging his broken wool back into the wasteland. Then another followed. Then 10. Retreat rippled outward, defeat moving faster than hope had. I didn't move. I counted fence posts again. 18 visible now from this angle. It didn't calm me. It just reminded me how trapped we were. Steel above, concrete below, razor wire crowning it all. A noose with paperwork. The Geiger counter clicked faster, needle flirting with orange. I tapped it again, ritual failing to soothe. Insects chewing louder. Radiation or nerves, it hardly mattered. I kept my eyes on the gate, on those 6 inches of possibility, because I knew something the others didn't. 3 months ago, I'd made it through a different gate, checkpoint Delta 12. Different fence, same hunger, same lies. I'd slipped past guards during a shift change, belly crawled through a drainage pipe that stank of industrial runoff and human waste. On the other side, I'd found more wasteland, sure, but I'd found air I could breathe. For a while. But I'd left people behind. A family, a mother, a father, 3 kids who had begged me to guide them through. I promised I would. When the alarm started, I ran. I didn't look back until the gunfire stopped. I still saw the little girl's braid bouncing as she ran, always just ahead of me, until I realized she wasn't there anymore. That braid haunted me every night since. Haunted me now as I stared at Tango 7's gate. Maybe that was why I didn't turn back. Why I stood there, frozen in the gray morning air, while others slumped away. Maybe I thought another 6 inches could erase 3 months of guilt. The guard shifted. His eyes flicked to his radio, where static hissed urgent but indistinct. He pressed a hand to his earpiece, posture snapping from weary to alert. Something was happening inside that booth. Something they weren't saying. The gate shuddered against its hinges. Not closing, not opening. Just testing its weight. A sound like metal groaning against metal. A sound that made the hairs on my neck rise. And in that groan, I heard something worse than the president's broadcast. I heard promise. The groan of the gate carried through the crowd like thunder rolling under the earth. People pressed closer, feet shuffling on cracked asphalt, breaths quickening in unison. Hope's a dangerous thing. It multiplies faster than radiation, faster than fear. The young guard lifted his palm higher. Stay back. His voice broke at the end, ragged, like a thread pulled too thin. His hand hovered near his sidearm, not to draw it, just to remind us it existed. A weapon as punctuation. I could almost pity him. Maybe 25, 26, raised on promises that uniforms meant authority. Now he was standing between 300 starving bodies and 6 inches of open gate, his boots planted in the dust of a world already dead. The Geiger counter clicked faster against my chest. Click, click, click. My pulse tried to match its rhythm. I tapped the casing with 2 fingers. It didn't help. The needle danced, giddy with possibility. Orders are orders, the guard repeated. His eyes skated across the crowd, landing briefly on me, then moving on. I wondered what he saw. Another face hollowed by ration lines? Another set of bones wrapped in fabric scavenged from dead closets? Or did he see someone who wasn't ready to walk away yet? The woman with the canvas bag sobbed into it. The old man's suitcase squealed as it rolled back into the gray sea of retreating pilgrims. But a core of us stayed. Maybe 30, maybe 40. Stubborn, desperate, stupid, hopeful. I couldn't decide which one I was. Then I heard the voice. Low, quick, and too casual for the setting. Paperwork. I turned. 20 yards behind the line, crouched beside an overturned shipping crate, a man worked with a penlight clamped between his teeth. His fingers danced over a stack of paper like a magician riffling cards. Stains blackened his nails, permanent tattoos of ink and chemicals. Transit pass, he muttered around the penlight. Proper watermarks, fresh stamps. Get you through. The name surfaced in my memory, Vasquez. I'd heard whispers back at Camp Jericho. DMV man before the meltdown. Knew the look of authority better than authority itself. Now he worked the dead zones, selling papers that could convince hungry guards of anything for just long enough. I edged toward him, my boots crunching on grit. What's the price? He spat the penlight into his palm and looked up. Small man, wiry, eyes sharp as broken glass. 2 meal rations. And that bottle. I glanced down at my pack. The bottle dangled from its strap, half full of water I'd filtered through my last purification tablet. My safety net. My insurance against the poisoned rain that fell every 3rd day. I'd been saving it for when the hunger became unbearable. It's clean, he said, reading my hesitation like a menu. Cleaner than anything those guards got in their tanks. Worth more than gold. The Geiger counter ticked louder, like it agreed. I unslung the pack, fingers brushing the torn zipper that refused to close. Inside, 3 protein bars, the photograph, the bottle. The photograph wasn't negotiable. The bars were suicide to trade in a crowd this size. That left the bottle. I handed it over. Desperation makes gamblers of all of us. Vasquez snatched it quick, twisted the cap, sniffed. His shoulders eased. He set to work. The penlight returned to his teeth, his fingers scratching flourishes across the paper. The pass began to look official, watermarks blooming under careful strokes, embossed seals catching what little light bled through the overcast. Shift changes in 20 minutes, he muttered, lips barely moving. New guard won't know the codes yet. This'll get you through. He finished with a flourish, tore the sheet from his stack, and pressed it into my hand. The paper felt heavier than it should. Real. Solid. A ticket printed on hope. Don't wave it, Vasquez warned. Hold it like prayer. Guard will see what he wants to see. I nodded, though my stomach turned at the thought. Prayer. I hadn't prayed since Delta 12. Since the braid bouncing in front of me vanished. If there was a God left in this wasteland, he'd stopped answering at the borders. Still, I clutched the pass like it was scripture. The young guard was pacing now, one hand on his radio, the other brushing his weapon. Static bled from his earpiece. He looked thinner every second, like hunger itself was chewing through him. His eyes darted to the gate, to the booth, to us. I stepped forward, boots crunching glass, paper in my grip. 30 pairs of eyes burned into my back, hungry for my gamble to pay off. Transit authorization, I said, steady as I could. My voice sounded foreign, like someone imitating confidence. Medical emergency, Sector 12. The guard blinked. His eyes flicked to the paper, then to my face. The world hung between us, caught on the silence of a breath. He took the pass with thin fingers, held it up to the security light above the booth. The watermarks shimmered. The stamps glowed faintly. For a moment, I thought it would work. His eyes narrowed. His lips twisted into something halfway between amusement and pity. Nice work, he said. Real nice. His voice dropped to a whisper sharp enough to cut. Vasquez does good business. Ice crawled my spine. You know him? The guard's laugh was sandpaper and metal. Know him? He works for us. Has for months. Caught him at Echo, 3 with a trunk full of fakes. Offered him a choice, rot, or print passes for desperate fools like you. My mouth went dry. My grip slackened on the paper. Behind me the crowd shifted. Faces I'd shared rations with. Faces I'd slept beside in the dirt. They knew. They understood. Proximity to me was a contagion now. Survival demanded distance. Vasquez was gone. Vanished like smoke, his crate nothing but empty asphalt. You sold me, I whispered into the gray air, though no one answered. The guard's hand closed on his cuffs. Steel clicked open like a verdict. Turn around, he said. The steel cuffs bit cold into my wrists, tighter than they needed to be. The guard didn't yank, didn't shove. He just applied enough pressure for the metal to whisper its promise. You belong to us now. The crowd parted as he pushed me forward. Not with jeers, not with pity. With silence. Faces I'd known for weeks erased themselves, refusing to see me, as though distance could cleanse the stain of my failure. A woman clutched her child tighter. A man with a cracked watch shifted 3 paces away. Their eyes slid past me like I was already gone. I wanted to shout, to tell them about Delta 12, about the braid that disappeared into gunfire. That I wasn't weak, just unlucky. But the words dried in my throat. In this world, explanations were as useless as currency. The guard guided me toward a side gate I hadn't noticed before, half hidden behind a concrete barrier. Rust streaked down its hinges, staining the ground like blood diluted in rain. A smaller path branched from the main corridor, a service road, narrow, shadowed, built for vehicles long abandoned. Processing centers 3 miles north, the guard said, voice flat as asphalt. Nice facility. Regular meals. Beds. Beds. I'd slept on dirt, in ditches, against the skeletal ribs of burned-out cars. Beds almost sounded like mercy. But we all knew what processing meant. Cataloged, sorted, filed under categories nobody ever explained. Families split by clipboard checks. Some came back from the centers. Most didn't. The Geiger counter clattered against my chest as we walked, its clicks slowing with distance from the fence but never stopping. I tapped the casing twice, more ritual than measurement. The guard glanced at it, then away, like even acknowledging radiation was against orders. We passed rows of rusted maintenance trucks. Tires rotted into lace, windows spiderwebbed with cracks. Once, these had carried workers who welded fences, replaced razor wire, maintained the cage. Now they sat like husks of beetles, their paint blistered by contamination. Movement flickered between them. A shadow, quick and deliberate. My breath hitched, but the guard didn't react. He was staring straight ahead, lips moving as if rehearsing the report he'd give when we arrived. We reached a stretch where weeds pushed through cracked pavement, brittle and gray like bones of plants that never knew green. The guard slowed, checking his watch, a cheap analog thing with a cracked crystal. I caught the numbers, 1,630 hours. 2.5 hours till sunset. No passage after dark, he muttered. Not to me, to himself, like a rule recited by rote. New protocol. Came down this morning. Sunset. I pictured it. What passed for sunset these days, when the sky only shifted from gray to darker gray. But rules mattered, even arbitrary ones. Rules kept the machinery moving, kept borders sealed, kept desperation contained. The Geiger counter clicked louder as we neared a ditch where rainwater pooled. The surface shimmered with iridescence, rainbow and beautiful in the ugliest way. The guard tugged me away before my boots could touch it. Rule about fence proximity, he said absently, still rehearsing. 50 feet minimum for unprotected personnel. He glanced at me, eyes tired. Rules change fast these days. I thought about asking him if he believed in the rules, if he still thought they protected anyone. But the words jammed behind my teeth. Maybe he didn't believe them either. Maybe that was worse. Behind us, the main gate crowd had thinned to a hum. The desperate were dispersing, melting back into tent camps and abandoned buildings. Those who stayed would fade too. Always did. Then from the corner of my eye a face. She crouched behind a maintenance truck, peering over its rusted hood. Silver hair braided tight, worker's hands scarred and calloused. Her eyes met mine for half a second, sharp, deliberate, assessing. She raised one finger to her lips, then pointed toward a gap in the fence half hidden by overgrowth. I stumbled to mask my reaction, my shoulder colliding with the guard's arm. His grip tightened on the cuffs. Keep moving. But his voice had lost its edge. The woman disappeared back into shadow. I breathed through my nose, forcing calm. She was real. Not a trick of radiation haze. Real. The service road curved, hemmed in by concrete walls. A perfect choke point. Ahead, I heard static pop from the guard's radio. Unit 7, report status on detained subject. His thumb hovered over the button, just a twitch away from sealing my fate. My stomach twisted, waiting for the words. In custody en route to processing. But his thumb hesitated. His jaw worked. The radio hissed again. Unit 7, report. He looked at me then. Not the way guards look at prisoners. The way men look at mirrors when they don't like what's reflected. The silver-haired woman's face flashed in my memory. Her nod. Her hand motioning to the gap. The guard's thumb moved, but not to the button. To his belt. A key glinted in his hand, catching the last light of the gray sky. He leaned close, so close his breath fogged my cheek. Run, he whispered. The cuffs snapped open. The cuffs clattered against the asphalt like broken chains. For half a heartbeat, I just stared at them, still warm from my wrists, proof of freedom I hadn't earned. Run, the guard hissed again, louder this time, before shoving me toward the ditch. His radio squawked with impatient static, demanding status he never gave. My legs jolted into motion before my brain caught up. Boots skidding on gravel, lungs sucking in metallic air that stung like bleach. The Geiger counter clacked wildly against my chest as if it disapproved, as if it wanted me to stand still and die properly. Stop, another voice roared behind me. Not my guard, a different one. Footsteps thundered, boots pounding the cracked service road. I ducked behind the nearest maintenance truck, the carcass of a long-dead vehicle that smelled of rust and old fuel. The first searchlight swept across the yard, cutting pale arcs through dust motes. Shadows leapt like frightened animals. I flattened against the truck's side, breath shallow. The light passed over, lingering just long enough to make sweat crawl down my spine. My guard shouted something muffled, maybe covering for me, maybe selling me out. I couldn't tell. Then fingers. A hand reached from beneath the chassis and tugged my boot. Not hard, not panicked. Just deliberate. I crouched, heart hammering, and saw her. The silver-haired woman lay on her belly beneath the truck, her braids streaked with dust. Her eyes found mine, sharp and unwavering, and she jerked her chin toward the shadows. Her lips formed a word without sound now. I slid under, gravel digging into my palms, ribs scraping metal. She led the way, fast and silent, weaving between skeletal vehicles until the fence loomed in front of us. Razor wire above, ivy clinging where nothing else dared grow. "Here," she whispered, voice low but steady. Her hand brushed aside vines, revealing a panel cut from the fence. The edges were clean, precise, not the sloppy work of scavengers. Someone had planned this. Someone on the inside. Searchlights swept closer. Shouts echoed. The guard's radio barked new orders. I hesitated. "They'll see. Not if you move." Her tone was iron, absolute. She pushed me toward the gap. I dropped to my knees, squeezed through the opening. Wire snagged my jacket sleeve, slicing fabric, but I pulled free. The other side was darker, quieter, the air heavier with damp earth. She followed, replacing the ivy with practiced care. From a distance, the fence looked whole again. "This way." We sprinted into the brush, low branches slapping my face, mud sucking at my boots. My lungs burned, the counter on my chest clattering with every step. Behind us, floodlights carved the yard white. Voices overlapped, orders, curses, the metallic crack of rifles being checked. The ground sloped downward. Roots twisted from the earth like veins. My foot caught, and I stumbled hard, palms grinding into wet soil. She yanked me up before I could curse. "Keep going." We burst into a clearing where a concrete slab jutted from the hillside, cracked and moss-choked. A drainage tunnel, wide enough for a person if they crawled. Rusted grates lay pried aside, weeds curling through the gaps. "In," she ordered. I dropped to my knees and slid inside. The air turned cold, reeking of mildew and rust. My backpack scraped the ceiling, water soaked my jeans. The sound of pursuit dulled, swallowed by the tunnel's throat. She crawled close behind, her breathing steady compared to my ragged gasps. The Geiger counter clicked slower here, shielded by earth maybe. Or maybe the tunnel was older than the contamination, built when cities still believed in permanence. We crawled for what felt like miles, hands sinking into mud, shoulders aching from hunching. My chest tightened with claustrophobia, the weight of earth above us, the tunnel pressing close. I tried to focus on the scrape of her braid against concrete ahead of me, steady guiding. At last, a dim light glowed ahead. We emerged into a cavernous space where the tunnel widened into an old maintenance chamber. Rusted pipes crisscrossed the ceiling. A generator hummed faintly in one corner, its weak bulb casting a jaundiced glow. 3 people stood waiting. A man in a patched bomber jacket, face hidden by a scarf. A woman with burns puckering her jaw, clutching a makeshift spear. A boy, no older than 15, holding a lantern too big for his hands. The silver-haired woman straightened, brushing dirt from her sleeves. "He's clean," she said. "Almost didn't make it." Their eyes landed on me. Not welcoming, not hostile. Measuring. The boy tilted the lantern, its beam slicing across my face. His voice cracked, still caught between child and man. "Another one from Tango?" The woman nodded. "He ran." The man in the bomber jacket finally spoke, voice muffled but firm. "Then he's ours." My stomach lurched at the word. Ours. Claimed, as if I'd traded one cage for another. The silver-haired woman must have read my face. She stepped closer, her eyes softer now. "You'd be dead if you stayed. Or worse. You want answers? You'll get them. But first, food, water, rest." The Geiger counter clacked faintly, reminding me the world outside still gnawed at my marrow. I unclipped it, set it on the floor, and watched the needle twitch like a nervous heartbeat. I wanted to argue, to demand who they were, what they wanted from me. But exhaustion pressed heavy. My throat was raw, my stomach hollow, my limbs trembling from the crawl. For the first time in months, someone offered me rest. I nodded. The boy dimmed the lantern. The man in the scarf pulled a tarp across the tunnel entrance, sealing us from the pursuit outside. The silver-haired woman motioned me deeper into the chamber, where cots lined the walls, blankets folded with military precision. She sat on one, gesturing for me to take the one beside it. "You're safe here," she said. Then, after a pause, "For now." When I woke, the world was still humming. For a second, I thought it was the Geiger counter, its insect chatter following me into sleep. But no. This was deeper, steadier. A generator's song. A reminder that somewhere down here, power still existed. I opened my eyes to the sour glow of a bare bulb swaying on a cord. The cot beneath me sagged in the middle, but it was softer than dirt, and the blanket across my chest smelled faintly of soap. My body didn't know what to do with the luxury. It ached anyway. Across the chamber, the silver-haired woman sat at a makeshift table fashioned from an old door balanced on crates. Papers sprawled before her, maps and notes held down by scavenged bolts. She glanced up when I stirred. "You slept 12 hours, she said. Her tone wasn't kind or reproachful, just factual. "You needed it." I pushed upright, my joints crackling like old wood. My stomach knotted with hunger, but someone had left a tin plate beside me. 2 crackers, a strip of dried meat. I ate without hesitation, the salt scraping my tongue raw. "You never told me your name," I said around the last bite. Her eyes lingered on me before she answered. "Call me Mara." The name fit her, sharp at the edges. "Doesn't matter," she cut in. "Names don't travel well these days. They get intercepted." She tapped the papers on the table. Curiosity tugged me across the room. The maps were old military charts, their edges curled and water-stained. Layers of pen scribbles crossed them, red circles around checkpoints, black slashes through dead towns, arrows that seemed to lead nowhere. At the center, a heavy marker line formed a jagged box. Inside it, stenciled letters read, "Containment Zone." I swallowed. "So it's true. They sealed us in." Mara's mouth twisted. "They sealed something in. Question is, was it us or the truth?" Before I could answer, the man in the bomber jacket approached. His scarf was pulled down now, revealing a face younger than I expected, late 20s, though exhaustion carved him older. His eyes burned with the kind of focus I'd only seen in zealots or starving dogs. "This one's from Tango 7, Mara said, gesturing at me. He studied me like an object, not a person. "You saw the broadcast?" I nodded. He said all borders sealed. "For our protection." His laugh was low, bitter. "Protection. That's what they call it when they build walls around graves." He dropped a stack of photographs onto the table. Black and white prints, edges curled from moisture. Grainy images of men in hazmat suits unloading crates from military trucks. Rows of body bags stacked like cordwood. A checkpoint guard aiming his rifle at civilians kneeling with their hands on their heads. "These were taken 2 months ago, near Echo Sector," he said. "Every processing center ends the same. Intake, records, disposal." The word disposal stuck like gristle in my throat. Why keep the gates open at all, even a crack?" "Bait," Mara said simply. "Hope keeps people moving toward the fences. Easier to herd them there than to chase them across the wasteland." I thought of the gate groaning at Tango 7. 6 inches open. Just enough to ignite the crowd. Just enough to drive us forward into a trap. The boy with the lantern wandered in then, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He carried a cracked laptop under one arm, wires dangling like veins. He set it on the table, tapped the spacebar. The screen flared pale blue, and text scrolled across. "Transmission logs," he mumbled. His voice was still thick with sleep. "Intercepted from the president's broadcast band." Lines of code filled the screen, broken with snippets of speech. Same voice I'd heard over the radio, but fractured, repeated, almost generated. "Effective immediately, all borders are sealed." Effective immediately, all borders are sealed. All borders are sealed. Each repetition was slightly different. Inflections shifted, syllables stretched. My stomach turned. "That's not live." "No," the boy said. "It's stitched. Pre-recorded. Looping." He scratched his hair. "Has been for weeks." I backed away from the table, the air feeling thinner, heavier. "Then the president?" "Dead," the bomber jacket man said flatly. "Or disappeared. Doesn't matter which. The broadcasts are just a script. A machine keeping the lie alive." The generator hummed louder, or maybe my ears just roared. I thought of the old man with the suitcase, of the woman clutching her canvas bag, of all the pilgrims still dragging themselves toward Tango 7, waiting for a voice that wasn't even human anymore. I pressed my fists into the table until the paper wrinkled. Why show me this? Why bring me here at all? Mara leaned forward, her braids sliding over her shoulder. Her eyes pinned me in place. Because you're proof. Proof of what? That people still believe the gate leads somewhere. That the bait still works. We need witnesses, not corpses. Her words landed heavy, but not as heavy as the silence that followed. My mind replayed the braid bouncing in front of me at Delta 12, the little girl swallowed by gunfire. Witnesses, not corpses. Except she was neither. She was absence. The boy tapped another key, and the screen shifted to a grainy satellite photo. Fences stretched in jagged lines, checkpoints marked like sores. Beyond them, dark swaths of land blurred into nothing. We're mapping every sector, the bomber jacket man said. We think the containment zone isn't to keep danger out. It's to keep us in. To bury something. Maybe everyone. My throat burned. Why? Why trap us? Mara answered without hesitation. Because someone decided we were already dead. The maps blurred in front of me, black ink bleeding into red circles until they became one shapeless smear. My pulse thudded in my temples. I stood too quickly, the chair legs screeching against concrete. Mara's eyes followed me, calm but unyielding. The others kept working. The boy tapping keys on his dying laptop. The man in the bomber jacket pinning new photos to the wall. The burn-scarred woman sharpening her spear with quiet rhythm. Nobody stopped me. Nobody comforted me. I stumbled toward the far wall, where rust streaked down concrete like frozen tears. My hands pressed flat against the cold surface, as if I could steady myself against stone. My chest heaved, but the air down here was heavy, damp, hard to pull into lungs. I saw the little girl again. Not here, but in memory. Her braids swinging, dust clinging to the ends, the white bow unraveling as she ran. Delta 12's alarms had shrieked, and I'd told myself I could outrun the chaos if I just moved faster. Then the gunfire split the air, and when I looked back, nothing. Not even a body. Just absence. My stomach twisted. I swallowed bile and pressed harder against the wall. You lost someone. Mara's voice came from behind, steady, not a question. I didn't turn. A family. Delta 12. They trusted me to guide them through. When the alarm started, my throat clenched. The words scraped raw on the way out. I ran. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. I half expected judgment, the kind I carried like a second skin. Instead, Mara only said, "You survived." The words cut sharper than condemnation. I spun, heat rising in my chest. You think that's redemption? That surviving erases what I left behind? Her eyes didn't flinch. I think it's the only reason you're standing here. And I think maybe survival's not the end of the story. The others still didn't look up. Either they'd heard confessions like mine before, or they'd made their own. I sank onto the cot again, my knees trembling. The Geiger counter on the floor clicked faintly, a metronome of decay. I don't know if I can help you, I admitted. I don't even know if I deserve to. Mara sat across from me, elbows resting on her knees, braid falling forward. Deserves a word that doesn't mean much anymore. We deal in choices, not absolutes. You want to stay breathing? You choose to fight for more than yourself. That's all the currency left. The boy yawned, the lantern glow making his shadow dance across the walls. We're not asking for saints, he muttered, eyes still on his laptop. Just people who can carry weight. I let out a humorless laugh. You think I'm strong enough to carry anyone? Maybe not yet, Mara said. But you kept standing at Tango 7 when others walked away. That's something. The memory returned, fence posts, my ritual count, the gate groaning open. Most turned back, but I stayed. Not out of courage. Out of guilt. Out of desperation. Yet here she was calling it proof. The man in the bomber jacket finally spoke, voice low, roughened with fatigue. We've lost more than we've saved. Every checkpoint has its ghosts. The ones who survive long enough to find us, whether they ran, fought, or just got lucky, they're the only soldiers we've got left. Doesn't matter how they got here. What matters is what they do now. His words sank deep, heavier than stone. I stared at the floor, tracing the cracks, the water stains. What they do now? For the first time since Delta 12, I let myself imagine doing something other than running. Mara leaned closer, her voice softer, almost conspiratorial. "We've mapped 3 more tunnels, all led under the containment line. We need someone who's seen the gates, who knows the guards' faces, their routines. Someone who understands the bait." I met her eyes. In them, no pity, no sanctimony, just calculation, and something else, quiet but undeniable, belief. "Why me?" I asked. "Why not send him?" I nodded at the bomber jacket, at the scarred woman, even at the boy. They all looked harder than me, stronger, already part of something I wasn't. "Because you still believe," Mara said simply. The words hit like a blow. Did I? Believe in what? That the braid I lost might mean something if I acted now. That the borders weren't just walls of steel, but lies I could tear down. I closed my eyes, the president's voice replaying in static loops. "Effective immediately, all borders are sealed, sealed, sealed." A machine's lullaby. When I opened them again, I said, "What do you need me to do?" Mara's mouth curved, not a smile, not quite. Approval, maybe. Or relief. "First," she said, rising to her feet, "you learn what you're up against." She motioned for me to follow her deeper into the tunnels, where the generator's hum gave way to another sound, the low murmur of many voices. I glanced back once at the cot, at the Geiger counter, at the maps littered with lies. Then I followed Mara into the dark, where the resistance waited. The tunnel curved like an intestine, narrowing until my shoulders brushed damp concrete. Mara's braid swung just ahead, steady as a metronome. The air thickened with a new smell, not mildew this time, but bodies. Sweat, smoke, cooked grain, and the faint sting of oil. Human life compressed underground. The murmur grew louder. Then we stepped into a cavern hollowed out of earth and reinforced with scavenged beams. The ceiling hung low in places, pipes dripping condensation into rusted buckets, but the space was alive. Dozens of people filled it. Some sat at makeshift tables built from doors and shipping pallets, bent over maps. Others hauled crates, their boots splashing through shallow runoff. Children huddled in one corner, drawing shapes on cardboard with bits of charcoal. A fire pit in the center smoked against a vent pipe, sending a weak curl of heat into the chill air. Every face turned when we entered. Not hostile, not welcoming, just watchful. Mara raised a hand. "He's with us." The tension eased a notch, though eyes lingered. A man grinding flour nodded. A woman stirring a pot barely glanced. But others, guards at the perimeter with rifles held loose but ready, kept their attention fixed on me. I felt their judgment like weight. Not all of them had been spared from cuffs like I had. Some bore bruises, wrists scabbed raw, faces scarred from beatings. Survivors, but not by luck. Mara guided me toward a raised platform made of welded scrap. On it, more maps spread across plywood sheets, weighted by stones. I recognized the jagged box again. Containment zone. Lines spidered outward, some traced with ink, others burned in with soldering irons. Bomber jacket stood at the edge, scarf pulled back again, talking low with 2 men who looked military, back straight, hair cropped close. He glanced up when Mara approached. "He's decided," she said. The men assessed me like livestock. One muttered, "Looks thin." "He's alive," Mara replied. "That's qualification enough." I clenched my jaw but said nothing. Bomber jacket waved me closer. "Welcome to the Hollow." His voice carried authority now, sharpened by the presence of followers. "We've been collecting the broken pieces. Families, deserters, even a few of the ones who built the fences. Anyone who's seen enough lies to want them gone." He pointed to the maps. Red marks spread like infection around checkpoints. Every gate has its watchers. They're not guarding against what comes in, they're staging what goes out. Broadcasts, fake passes, ration rumors, all designed to keep movement predictable. One of the military men leaned in. "Predictable movement's easier to cull." The word curdled my stomach. Cull. Like livestock. Like we were never meant to survive. Mara gestured to the cavern around us. "We train here. We share what we know. Some hunt for food, some scavenge for tech. Everyone carries weight." As if on cue, a whistle blew. Half the cavern stirred. Young men and women gathered near a cleared space where circles had been chalked into the floor. They squared off, fists wrapped in cloth, sparring under the watch of an older woman who barked commands. Their blows echoed sharp against stone, punctuated by grunts of effort. On the far side, another group stripped rifles on blankets, hands moving fast and practiced. The weapons were mismatched, AK stocks grafted to M4 receivers, barrels filed and patched, but the discipline was military. I found myself staring. All of it was so organized. Not scavengers clinging to survival. Fighters. Preparing. Why show me this? I asked. Bomber Jacket's gaze was iron. Because we're done hiding. The fences aren't just cages, they're theater. And theater can be disrupted. The boy with the lantern appeared again, lugging his laptop. He set it on the platform, screen flickering. He pointed to a waveform graph pulsing green. Broadcast strength is centralized. We traced it to a hub inside the zone. They're not sending orders from outside, they're manufacturing them here. Mara folded her arms. The lie is local, which means it can be broken. The burn-scarred woman approached, spear in hand, her eyes like coals. And when we break it, people need to hear the truth before the gatekeepers silence us again. Her words stirred a murmur among those nearby. Agreement. Hunger. I thought of Tango 7. The crowd pressing, the woman sobbing into her canvas bag, the old man dragging his suitcase. Hope had driven them forward. But hope alone was bait. If these people were right, if the broadcasts were stitched lies, if the processing centers were graves, then exposing that truth might be the only weapon left. But the braid haunted me. The family I'd abandoned. Could I carry another's trust again? Mara must have seen the doubt flicker across my face. She stepped close, voice low. You think you failed them. Maybe you did. But you're still here, and they're not. So ask yourself, what's the worth of your survival? To repeat the failure? Or to fight until it means something? Her words landed like stone in my gut. Around us, the hollow pulsed with life. Fists striking. Rifles reassembled. Children drawing shapes of gates on cardboard. Every detail said the same thing. These people were preparing for more than endurance. They were preparing for war. The hollow quieted after training. Sparring rings erased, rifles stowed, smoke from the central fire curling lazy into the vents. People drifted toward their cots or meal lines, the cavern dimming into tired murmurs. But Mara didn't let me fade into the background. She motioned me back to the map table, where Bomber Jacket and the scarred woman already waited. The boy balanced his laptop on a crate, its screen flickering, battery indicator a thin red sliver. This isn't orientation, Mara said. It's briefing. I frowned. Briefing for what? Bomber Jacket jabbed a finger at the map. Checkpoint Echo 9. Smaller than Tango 7, but critical. Supplies routed through their feed 3 other sectors. Guards run shifts every 6 hours. We've confirmed processing there isn't about relocation, it's disposal. Quiet, efficient. No witnesses. The scarred woman laid her spear across the table like punctuation. We have witnesses now, but stories aren't enough. We need proof. Mara slid a folder toward me. Inside, photographs, grainy night shots of trucks, bodies being dragged, burned pits glowing against the dark. And one more, a document stamped with military insignia. Orders, real or forged, I couldn't tell. Smuggled out by a deserter, Mara explained. But anyone can call a paper fake. We need something undeniable. A live record. The boy tapped his laptop. Camera rig. Small, wireless. If we plant it near the hub, it'll stream to our receivers here. Proof in real time. The plan coiled in my gut like a snake. And you want me to what? Sneak in and set it up? Mara's eyes pinned me. You've stood at the gates. You've seen their faces, their methods. You know how to move in their shadow. That's why it has to be you. My laugh cracked brittle. You think that qualifies me? I barely made it here alive. You saw me cuffed, stumbling, ready to fold. Bomber Jacket leaned in, eyes flaring. And yet you're here. You want redemption? Prove it. The scarred woman's mouth twisted into something like a smile. Or walk away. But if you do, remember, every step you take out there is on borrowed time. At least here, time can mean something. The choice pressed heavy. My chest felt small, like the walls themselves had crept closer. Echo 9. Cameras. Proof. It sounded noble, but all I saw was Delta, 12 again. The braid bouncing. The moment I failed. Mara must have read it in my face. She leaned across the table, voice dropping so only I could hear. Fear's not the enemy. Fear's the compass. It tells you where the stakes are real. Follow it, or you'll die running in circles. Her words burned, steady as her gaze. I swallowed, throat dry. If I go in, and I break, if I fail. Then you fail, Mara said bluntly. We all fail sometimes. But if you don't even try, you've already failed them. The ones you lost. The ones still waiting at the gates. The braid. The family. Their absence gnawed at me. But maybe, just maybe, this was the first step toward carrying the weight instead of fleeing it. I forced air into my lungs, nodding once. When? Bomber jacket didn't hesitate. 48 hours. Night cycle. We've got a tunnel that spits out less than 50 yards from Echo 9's perimeter. Guard rotations at 0-100 leave a blind spot. You'll have 5 minutes to plant the rig. The boy handed me a palm-sized device, its lens glinting like an unblinking eye. Lighter than I expected, but its weight settled deep in my chest. Mara studied me, searching for cracks. Rest tomorrow. Train. Learn the tunnel routes. And when the time comes, remember, this isn't just about you. It's about every voice that's been silenced behind those gates. Her hand brushed the folder, the photographs of pits and trucks, before she added, "We need their silence to end." I clutched the device until its edges dug into my skin. Proof. Truth. Maybe even redemption. But in the quiet of the hollow, beneath the hum of the generator and the whispers of tired survivors, doubt still gnawed. I had agreed. And now there was no way back. The tunnels taught me humility. They were narrower than I remembered from the crawl that had brought me here. Some sections so tight I had to exhale just to squeeze my ribs through. Others were damp, mud slurping at my knees, water dripping down my neck. My palms burned from scraping against concrete, and my breath fogged in the pitch dark until the lantern behind me flickered like a heartbeat. Faster, Mara called from ahead. Her voice carried calm, but beneath it was steel. I gritted my teeth, dragging myself forward. My shoulders screamed, my knees bruised against stone. Every instinct screamed to back out, to turn around and breathe air not filtered through mildew and dust. But I pushed on, because if I couldn't handle this, I had no business crawling anywhere near Echo 9. When we finally emerged into a side cavern, I collapsed onto the dirt, chest heaving. Sweat soaked my shirt, my fingers trembling from strain. Mara crouched beside me, braid damp from the tunnel. She offered a canteen. You're slower than you think. Panic steals seconds. I gulped water, the metallic taste grounding me. What happens if panic wins? Then the mission loses, she said simply. And so does everyone else. The scarred woman clapped my shoulder, hard enough to sting. Better you learn that down here than with rifles overhead. Training didn't end there. Bomber Jacket marched me to the weapons ring, where tables overflowed with pieces of rifles scavenged from a dozen wars. He dropped a battered AK receiver in front of me. Strip it. Rebuild. I hesitated. I'm not. Neither were they, he cut in, gesturing to the others, teenagers, mothers, a man missing 2 fingers, working silently at their own tables. Learn or die. I fumbled at first, hands clumsy, pins slipping from my grip. But repetition taught me rhythm. Receiver, bolt, spring, barrel. My fingers remembered, even when my brain faltered. By the 5th try, I could disassemble and reassemble with only one dropped curse. Good, Bomber Jacket said. Approval, clipped and reluctant. But remember, mechanics are easier than nerves. Nerves will kill you faster than rust. Later, the boy with the lantern tested me with the rig. He had strapped the camera into a pouch designed to look like torn fabric, the lens disguised as a snapped button. Plant it near their hub, he instructed, his voice quick, excited. Angle's everything. Too high, they spot it. Too low, you record mud. He shoved the pouch into my hands. Pretend I'm a guard. Plant it without me noticing. I fumbled again, clumsy under the boy's sharp stare. The rig slipped, the angle wrong. He sighed like an old man in a child's body. You're dead. Again. Let him breathe, Mara said from the shadows, though her eyes were sharp too. I tried again, slower, hand steady this time. Slid the pouch into a crevice between stacked crates, lens barely visible. The boy grinned, gap-toothed. Better. Almost fooled me. Training bled into exhaustion. Hours blurred, sparring circles, breathing drills, more tunnel crawls. My muscles ached, my throat burned, and sleep came in shallow snatches on a cot that felt smaller each night. But between drills, the hollow showed its softer edges. The children who drew gates on cardboard began drawing faces too, stick figures smiling under skies they hadn't seen in months. One girl pressed a drawing into my hand, a crooked figure with spiky hair. Me, I realized, though she'd given me a cape. At meals, Mara sat beside me sometimes, eating the same thin stew everyone else did. She never asked about Delta, 12, never pried. But once, when I flinched at a memory I couldn't smother, she said quietly, "Ghosts don't vanish by running from them, only by carrying them forward." And one night, as the fire pit smoldered low, Bomber Jacket told a story, not of glory or victory, but of losing his brother at a checkpoint. He didn't embellish, didn't cry. He just spoke, and in his voice I heard the same fracture I carried. For a moment, I didn't feel like the weak link, just another piece of broken metal hammered into something sharper. But every time I lay down, the device pressed cold against my chest, tucked into my jacket for practice. A reminder. The mission wasn't a possibility, it was a countdown. 48 hours shrank to 24. The hollow buzzed with preparation. Maps redrawn, rotations checked, guards rehearsed signals. Everyone's hands busy, everyone's voices low. The air hummed with focus, dread braided with determination. And I lay awake, staring at the dripping pipes above, my heartbeat loud as gunfire. I wasn't ready. Not for tunnels, not for rifles, not for Echo 9. But time didn't ask if you were ready. It dragged you forward anyway. The hollow was quieter that night. No sparring circles, no clatter of rifle parts, no children drawing crooked skies. Just the hum of the generator and the low murmur of voices around the fire pit. The air felt heavier, as if the cavern itself held its breath. Tomorrow was Echo 9. Everyone knew it. No one said it. I sat at the edge of the fire, the pouch with the camera rig pressed against my ribs. My hands kept tracing its edges, memorizing its weight. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined fumbling it, dropping it, leaving it crooked and useless. "You'll wear a hole through your jacket if you keep that up." Mara's voice slid into the quiet. She lowered herself onto the crate beside me, braid coiled loosely over her shoulder. She carried no spear tonight, no authority. Just herself, pale in the fire's glow. "I keep thinking about tomorrow," I admitted. "Good." She stretched her legs, boots scuffing dirt. "Fear sharpens the edges, but it can dull them too if you let it." I swallowed. "What if I fail?" Her gaze caught mine, unwavering. "Then you fail, and we try again. But if you don't try at all, then the lie wins forever." I stared into the fire, its embers cracking like distant gunfire. "You sound certain." Her mouth twitched, not a smile, not quite. "Certainty's a mask. The truth is, I carry ghosts just like you. The difference is, I've decided what they're for." That pulled me sideways. "What do you mean?" She leaned back, eyes on the fire. 2 years ago, before the broadcasts, before the gates, I had a son, 8 years old. His name was Elias. Bright, restless, hated to sleep. He used to ask me why the stars moved at night. Her voice didn't crack, but I heard the fracture anyway. When the alarm sounded, I carried him toward the checkpoint. Soldiers told us to line up, to wait. I held his hand. Then the gunfire started. The crowd broke. In the chaos, I lost him. 1 second he was there, the next, her hand curled into a fist. Absence, like a string cut. I sat frozen, firelight flickering across her face. She didn't look at me, didn't need to. "So you see," Mara continued softly, "I don't fight because I believe I'll win. I fight because Elias deserves more than silence. Because if I carry him only as grief, then he's gone twice over. But if I carry him as fire," her eyes lifted to mine then, sharp as flint, "then he burns in every step I take." The words carved into me, raw and unforgiving. My own ghosts rose again. The braid, the family at Delta, 12, their absence a wound that never closed. I'd carried them only as guilt, weight dragging me backward. What if I carried them forward instead? "I don't know if I can do that," I whispered. "You don't have to know," Mara said. "You just have to step." Silence stretched. The fire popped, ash curling upward into the vents like lost prayers. Finally I asked, "And if I don't come back?" Mara's eyes softened, though they never lost their edge. "Then at least you'll leave more behind than fear. Proof. Truth. That's all we can give." The generator hummed louder, or maybe my blood just pounded harder. Around us, others settled for the night. The boy curled with his laptop clutched like a toy. The scarred woman sat cross-legged, blade across her knees, eyes shut in silent vigil. Bomber jacket paced, too restless for sleep. I wanted to believe their certainty, but what I felt was something different, inevitability. Tomorrow would come, whether I was ready or not. And when it did, I would step into Echo 9 carrying more than my own life. I would carry ghosts, and their weight would either steady me or crush me. Mara rose, brushing ash from her trousers. Get some sleep. The tunnels won't go easy on you tomorrow. I nodded, but sleep felt impossible. When I finally lay down on my cot, the rig pressing cold against my chest, I whispered a promise into the dark. Not to Mara, not to the Hollow, not even to the Resistance. To the family I'd lost. To the girl with the braid. To every absence carved into me. Tomorrow, I'll carry you forward. The Hollow stirred us awake before dawn, though dawn was only a guess, measured by cycles of the generator and the slow dimming of lanterns. No sunlight reached this far. No sky to mark the hour. Just the knowledge that our window was closing. Mara met me at the map table, her braid coiled tight against her back. Bomber jacket strapped on mismatched body armor, plates rattling as he tightened buckles. The scarred woman slung her spear and a pistol, movements precise, almost ritual. 4 of us, Mara said. Lean quiet. More is risk, less is suicide. The boy pressed the rig into my hands again. Remember, plan it where it sees faces, not boots. And don't die with it. Dead men don't broadcast. I forced a smile, though my throat was dry. I'll try to keep that in mind. We set off. The maintenance tunnel yawned like a throat, swallowing us whole. Damp concrete closed around my shoulders, graffiti long faded into stains. Water dripped in slow rhythms, each drop echoing like footsteps. The lantern swung from Mara's grip, throwing light in nervous arcs. We moved single file. Mara first, her movements deliberate. I followed, my breath harsh in my ears. Bomber jacket crept behind me, his bulk filling the tunnel, while the scarred woman brought up the rear, her spear dragging faintly against the floor. Every sound magnified, cloth scraping concrete, boots scuffing stone, water sighing through pipes. I counted breaths the way I once counted fence posts. It steadied me, gave panic no room to bloom. 50 yards. That was all the boy had said. 50 yards from hatch to perimeter. But in the tunnel, distance distorted. Every footstep stretched into forever. At one bend, the ceiling dipped low, forcing us to crawl on our bellies. Cold sludge seeped through my sleeves, mud sucking at my knees. My ribs squeezed against stone until I felt my heartbeat in bone. Claustrophobia pressed in, whispering that I would never reach the other side. My breath hitched. I froze. Mara's hand reached back through the dark, palm open. She didn't speak, didn't urge. Just waited. I forced air into my lungs, slid my palm against hers, and pushed forward. Her grip was steady, grounding me until the tunnel widened again. When we finally reached a side alcove, Bomber jacket checked his watch. His voice was a rasp. 40 minutes until the shift. Keep moving. We pressed on. The tunnel tilted upward, air thinning, sounds sharper now. Boots clattering overhead, muffled shouts, the grind of machinery. Echo 9 loomed above us, alive with guards and their routines. At the next junction, the scarred woman crouched beside a vent grate, listening. Her face was unreadable, eyes reflecting lantern glow like glass. She whispered, 2 voices. Close. We froze, every breath a betrayal. Footsteps approached, heavy on the metal above. Laughter followed, sharp and cruel. Words drifted down, snatches about rations, about processing quotas. Then a scrape of a lighter, the faint hiss of a cigarette. Smoke filtered through the grate, acrid in my nostrils. I held my breath until my chest burned. The voices lingered. Then boots retreating, fading into distance. The scarred woman exhaled, barely audible. Clear. We moved again, silence heavy as chains. The tunnel narrowed once more, forcing us into single crawl. My palms were raw, my knees bruised, but forward was the only direction left. Finally, Mara raised her hand. We halted. Ahead, a steel hatch loomed. Rust streaked its hinges, bolts mottled with age. Faint light seeped through cracks around the frame, cold, electric light. Mara whispered, perimeter. My stomach nodded. This was it. Beyond that hatch, 50 yards of open ground. Guard rotations, blind spots, the hub. The place where I would have to crawl from shadow into exposure and plant the rig. The pouch pressed against my chest, its lens digging into my ribs like an eye demanding proof. Mara turned, her face pale in the lantern glow. Once we're topside, there's no time for doubt. Every second is measured. Breathe steady. Move with purpose. You plan it, we cover. I nodded, though my throat was sand. Bomber Jacket shifted his rifle. Scarred woman checked her blade. The air thickened with anticipation, charged like the moment before lightning strikes. Mara placed her hand on the hatch, testing its give. The faintest creak answered. She looked at me, not as a commander, but as something closer, an equal about to step into the same fire. Ready, she whispered. My breath shuddered. I thought of Delta, 12 of the braid, of ghosts waiting to be carried. I closed my fist around the rig. Ready, I said, though the word tasted like ash. Mara nodded once. Then she turned the latch. The hatch groaned open, spilling us into the thin light of Echo 9's underbelly. Cold night air slammed against me as the hatch opened, sharp with the stink of oil and bleach. My lungs drank it greedily after the suffocating tunnels, but fear soured it quick. We crouched beneath a lattice of pipes. Floodlights swept the perimeter in mechanical arcs, slicing the dark into harsh angles. Beyond the fence, shadows moved, guards on rotation, rifles slung casual, their voices drifting like low static. Bomber Jacket slid the hatch shut, slow enough to mute the groan. Clock's ticking, he whispered. Mara pointed across the yard. 50 yards away, a squat concrete building squatted like a bunker. No windows. Antennas bristled from the roof, wires trailing like veins. The hub. That's our proof, Mara breathed. We get the eye inside, we show the world what Echo 9 hides. The scarred woman tapped her spear against the dirt once, a ritual more than sound. Then we moved. Shadows became our only allies. We crawled beneath the pipes, slipped behind stacked crates, froze when a floodlight passed too close. Every sound felt catastrophic, boots scuffing dirt, metal clinking against metal, my own breath ragged in my ears. At the fence's edge, Mara signaled halt. 2 guards leaned against a truck less than 20 feet away, cigarettes glowing. Their laughter cut through the stillness, jagged and cruel. Bomber Jacket lifted his rifle. Mara touched his arm, shook her head. No gunfire. Silence was survival. We waited. Seconds stretched. Ash fell from the cigarettes, sparks dying in dirt. Finally, one guard flicked his butt, muttered something, and both drifted toward the gate. Mara's fingers flicked in signal. Move. We slipped along the truck's shadow, crouched low. My heart hammered, sure they'd hear it even from across the yard. At the hub's wall, Mara turned to me. Her eyes caught mine, steady. Now. My throat dried. My hands found the pouch, its edges biting into my palms. 50 yards had collapsed to nothing, and yet the distance between her hand signal and my first step felt infinite. Then I moved. Crouched low, I scurried across the open strip toward the hub's side wall. Concrete cold against my shoulder, I slid into its shadow. The others melted into cover behind me, their presence distant now. This part was mine alone. The hub door was chained, padlock rusted but solid. No way inside, but just above, ventilation slats gaped like broken teeth. Perfect. I pulled the rig free. Its disguised lens glimmered faintly in the floodlight's reach. My hands shook as I dug into the slats, wedging the pouch between rust and concrete. Too loose. It slipped. My stomach lurched. Footsteps. Close. I froze, breath strangled. A guard's shadow stretched across the wall, rifle silhouette sharp against the floodlight glare. Thought I heard something, a voice muttered. Boots crunched gravel, drawing nearer. I pressed myself flat against the concrete, rig clutched in my fist. Every nerve screamed to run, to vanish back into the shadows. But Mara's voice echoed in my skull. If you don't try at all, then the lie wins forever. The shadow loomed. I forced my trembling hands to move. Wedged the rig again, deeper this time, angled down into the room beyond. My fingers found purchase. The pouch held. The lens stared, unblinking. I tapped the switch. A faint red dot blinked once, then stilled. Live. The guard's boots scraped closer. I could smell the cigarette on his breath. My chest locked, air trapped. Then another voice called from the distance. Shift change. Let's move. The shadow turned, boots retreating. Relief hit so sharp it felt like pain. I stayed frozen until the footsteps faded. Only then did I dare to exhale, lungs burning. The rig hummed against the wall, silent but alive, streaming truth through stone and wire. Proof. I pressed my forehead against the cold concrete, eyes shut. For the first time since Delta 12, I'd carried a weight forward without dropping it. But it wasn't victory. Not yet, because now we had to get out alive. The red dot blinked once, then vanished into steady silence. The rig was live. I forced myself to back away from the wall, each step measured, knees bent low. My palms sweated, but I kept them pressed flat to my thighs, as if clutching at stillness itself. In the distance, Mara signaled, 2 fingers up, curl, retreat. I nodded, though my head felt too heavy to move. We slipped along the hub's wall, shadows pressed close. Bomber Jacket appeared beside me, eyes flaring with the unspoken question. Did you do it? I gave the faintest nod. His jaw set. No praise, just acknowledgement. We moved. The scarred woman took point this time, her body angled low, spear tucked against her spine like another rib. Mara trailed me close, her presence steady as heartbeat. Bomber Jacket ghosted behind, rifle sweeping arcs of darkness. The yard seemed louder now. Floodlights hummed, wires buzzed, the grind of trucks rolled somewhere near the gate. Every sound felt sharpened, accusing. My own boots seemed too heavy, too clumsy. Halfway back, laughter cracked the stillness. 2 guards again, their cigarettes glowing like twin embers. Same men or different, it didn't matter. Their voices carried, casual but sharp enough to slice. Swear I saw something by the hub. My pulse lurched. Probably a rat. Everything scuttles in this place. The other snorted. Big rat to shake the vent like that. My breath locked. I imagined the pouch slipping, the lens glinting. Proof undone by one careless glance. The scarred woman froze, raised a hand. We dropped into crouches, pressed against stacked crates that smelled of fuel and damp wood. The guards' boots crunched closer. My ears roared. Then, a shout from the gate. A third voice, sharp, official. Rotation. Let's move. The cigarette embers flared, then faded as the 2 drifted away. Relief crashed over me, dizzying. But Mara's face stayed hard. They'll remember, she whispered. Suspicion lingers. We don't have long. We slid along the crates, every second stretched taut. Floodlights swept, forcing us to freeze, then scuttle again when the beams passed. At last, the pipes loomed ahead, the hatch hidden beneath their shadow. Safety so close I could taste it. Bomber Jacket reached it first. He crouched, fingers testing the latch. His face went still. Locked. The hatch we'd slipped through, the one we'd left ajar for retreat, it was bolted from the outside. My stomach dropped. Mara's curse was silent, her lips shaping the word without sound. The scarred woman's grip tightened on her spear. Trap. Maybe. Mara's eyes scanned the yard, calculating. Or routine. Bomber Jacket's rifle twitched toward the perimeter, but Mara stopped him with a hand. Not yet. We pressed tight against the pipes. The air smelled of rust and stale water. Above, boots marched. Voices overlapped, sharper now. Guards checking, rechecking. Suspicion spreading like oil on fire. One voice rose clearer. Hub vents loose. Might be nothing. Might not. Sweep the yard. My heart clawed at my ribs. The scarred woman leaned in close, whisper sharp. We run now, or we die in here. Mara's eyes met mine, steady. Running makes noise. Noise draws rifles. We wait for the sweep to pass, then move to the secondary hatch. Secondary? I croaked, barely air behind the word. She nodded. Further east. Longer crawl. Less safe. But it's there. The sweep began. Floodlights carved deliberate arcs, slower this time. Boots spread across the yard, guards breaking formation. Their radios crackled with terse orders. We pressed deeper into the pipe's shadows, bodies stacked close, breath shallow. My back ached, my knees cramped, but stillness was survival. A guard passed within 10 feet, his rifle glinting under the light. His boots splashed through puddles, each step a drumbeat in my skull. My throat itched, desperate to cough, but I bit it down until my chest burned. The rig's red dot pulsed in my mind, phantom against the dark. It was live. Proof was streaming. But none of it would matter if we bled out here. The guard paused, turned. His light swept closer, beam knifing between pipes. Mara's hand closed around mine, fingers steady, grounding. Stillness, her grip said, "Trust it." The beam lingered, then drifted away. Boots retreated, voices fading toward the hub. Mara exhaled slow. "Now," she mouthed. We peeled from the pipes, crouching low. Every step east was agony stretched thin. Shadows bent, lights flared, guards circled back. But we moved, silent as smoke. The secondary hatch was further than Mara promised. Or maybe fear stretched distance. Either way, by the time it appeared, a slab half hidden under stacked barrels, my lungs burned and my legs trembled. Bomber Jacket heaved the barrels aside, metal groaning. Too loud. A voice shouted across the yard. The scarred woman yanked the hatch open, iron scraping stone. Floodlights swiveled. Boots thundered. "They saw us," Bomber Jacket hissed. And just like that, silence shattered. Shouts erupted. Rifles clicked. The sweep became pursuit. We dove into the hatch, the dark swallowing us whole. The hatch slammed behind us, iron shrieking as Bomber Jacket yanked it shut. Gunfire cracked against it a heartbeat later, sparks spitting through rust. The tunnel swallowed us into blackness, the echoes of pursuit crawling down our spines. "Move," Mara hissed. We did. Hands and knees, crawling through a tunnel narrower than the first. Dirt sifted from the ceiling, stinging my eyes, clinging to my sweat. Every breath pulled dust into my lungs until I coughed raw. Behind us, boots pounded against the hatch. Voices shouted orders. Then a metallic groan, the hinge giving way. "Faster," the scarred woman barked, her voice rasping as she shoved me forward. The tunnel tilted downward. Water slicked the floor, freezing against my palms. My knees slipped, slammed stone, but I kept crawling, kept dragging myself through mud that smelled of rot and chemicals. Gunfire burst behind us, deafened by earth but close enough to feel in my bones. A bullet sparked stone, ricocheting down the tunnel with a scream like tearing metal. Panic surged. My arms flailed, knees scraped raw. The Geiger counter banged against my chest, clicking frantically as if mocking my desperation. Mara's voice cut through the chaos. "Steady." Panic steals seconds. Her words hooked me, reeled me back from collapse. I forced air in slow, forced limbs to move in rhythm. Crawl, pull, drag. Not graceful, survival never was. Bomber Jacket shoved from behind, his bulk driving me forward. "Keep moving." The tunnel narrowed again, squeezing ribs and shoulders. Claustrophobia clawed at me, walls pressing, ceiling scraping. My breath hitched, panic flaring, until Mara's braid brushed my hand ahead. A tether. Proof she was still there. The scarred woman snarled behind, firing blind down the tunnel. The muzzle flash lit her face in bursts, eyes blazing. Gunfire answered, sparks exploding off stone. Dirt showered over us. Almost there. Bomber Jacket growled, but the tunnel bent sharply, forcing us to twist. That was when it happened. A bullet punched through the ceiling above the scarred woman, spraying stone. The tunnel groaned, then collapsed. Dirt cascaded, stone chunks crashing. The scarred woman shoved hard, driving me forward with a force that knocked the breath from my chest. "Go," she shouted. The ceiling caved. Dust roared, choking, blinding. Her silhouette vanished in a storm of earth and rock. "No!" I screamed, clawing at the collapse. My fingers scraped stone, tore nails, but the tunnel sealed itself with brutal finality. Mara's hand seized my wrist. Her face, streaked with mud, inches from mine. She chose. "Don't waste it." I froze, her words cutting through the haze. Then Bomber Jacket's arms shoved me forward, the weight of pursuit at our heels. We crawled harder, faster, lungs tearing, hands bleeding. The tunnel sloped steep, water rushing now, mud slick. I slid half the way, scraping elbows, knees, face. Behind us, the gunfire muffled, pursuit slowed by the collapse. But it didn't erase the cost. When the tunnel widened again, I collapsed against the wall, chest heaving. Mara crouched in front of me, her face pale beneath grime. "She's gone," I rasped, guilt splitting me open. Mara's voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the fracture. "She gave us the seconds we needed. That's the math of survival." Bomber Jacket spat mud, his jaw hard as iron. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at Mara. He just crawled on, shoulders set against grief. We followed. Minutes or hours, time dissolved in darkness. Later, a faint light bled ahead. Not firelight. Lantern glow. The hollow. The tunnel spat us into the cavern, collapsing me onto stone. Voices rose, shouts, hands pulling, lanterns flashing. The boy appeared, his face pale, eyes wide. The rig, it's streaming. We're seeing everything. Relief should have come. Proof was alive, truth spilling from the hub. But all I felt was weight. Mud in my lungs, blood on my hands, and the absence of the scarred woman, her voice, her fire, carved into silence. Mara knelt beside me, her braid matted, her eyes hollow but steady. "We did it," she whispered. I wanted to believe her, but the echo of her words twisted. We did it, but not all of us. And in that silence, the truth cut deeper than victory. Proof had a cost. The hollow had never been so loud. By the time we staggered through the tunnel mouth, mud-soaked and coughing, the cavern had filled with bodies. Survivors pressed shoulder to shoulder around the boy's laptop, its dim screen throwing ghost light across faces. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Not at us, not at our return, but at what they saw. On the screen, Echo 9. Floodlit fences, guards dragging bodies into pits, trucks unloading more, the dead and the nearly dead, stacked like crates. No grainy photos now, no rumors. This was live, undeniable. "It's true," someone whispered, voice trembling. "All of it." A woman covered her child's eyes, though the boy fought against her hand, desperate to see. An old man collapsed to his knees, murmuring prayers that cracked and faltered. Others just stared hollow-eyed, their worst suspicions hardened into fact. The boy adjusted the signal, pride and fear warring in his face. "It's streaming steady. Nothing's blocking it. Anyone who tunes in can see." Anyone. The word echoed. Anyone. The crowd murmured, hope sparking in places, rage in others. Proof meant power, or danger. Maybe both. I should have felt relief. Triumph. But all I felt was the ache in my chest where the scarred woman should have been. I could still see her face lit by muzzle flash, hear her voice barking "go" as the tunnel collapsed. Her absence sat heavier than the mud on my skin. Mara climbed onto a crate, her voice cutting through the cavern like a blade. "You all see it now. No more whispers, no more guessing. This is what the checkpoints are. This is what the broadcasts cover with lies. And it's happening everywhere, not just Echo 9. Murmurs surged, anger building. Mara raised her hand. Silence fell. But proof is only the first step. Proof won't feed us. Proof won't keep rifles from our backs. Proof only means the world can no longer claim it doesn't know. Her eyes swept the crowd, steady as stone. And that means the world has a choice. To act or to watch us die. The words struck, sharp as hammer blows. Some nodded, fire lighting their faces. Others looked away, fear gnawing deeper. I stood at the edge, chest hollow. Mara's fire didn't reach me. Not yet, because all I saw was the scarred woman, her sacrifice reduced to silence. Proof streaming, yes, but at what cost? Bomber Jacket leaned against the wall, his jaw locked, arms crossed so tight I thought he'd snap his own bones. He hadn't spoken since the collapse. His silence weighed heavier than shouting. I drifted toward the edge of the crowd. The noise pressed too close, the screen's glow too sharp. My stomach churned. Proof might change everything for them, but it hadn't changed the hollow carved inside me. Mara found me there. She didn't speak right away. She just stood beside me, her braid streaked with dust, her face lined with exhaustion. Together we watched the feed. Guards tossing a child into the pit. Flames rising. Finally, she said quietly, "You carried it." I didn't answer. "You carried the rig," she continued. "You carried the fear. And you carried her choice forward." The words twisted in my chest. She shouldn't have had to. "No," Mara agreed. "She shouldn't have. None of us should. But this is the math. Every truth costs blood." I turned, anger sharp in my throat. Then what's the point? Proof doesn't bring her back. Proof doesn't stop them from doing it again tomorrow. Proof doesn't. Mara's hand caught my shoulder, steady, grounding. No. Proof doesn't undo. Proof reveals. And once revealed, silence breaks. That's how change begins. Not with victory, with exposure. Her eyes locked on mine, flint against flint. Don't cheapen her choice by wishing for what can't be. Honor it by carrying it forward. Her words didn't heal. They weren't meant to, but they steadied me like a splint on a broken bone. The feed flickered, but the image held. The hollow buzzed with restless energy, grief and fury mingling. The boy grinned through exhaustion, muttering, "It's working, it's really working." I pressed my back to the cavern wall, slid down until I sat in the dust. My body trembled, not just from exhaustion, but from the weight of it all. Proof. Sacrifice. Ghosts. I thought of the girl at Delta, 12, the braid bouncing as she was dragged away. I thought of the scarred woman shoving me forward, her voice cutting through dust. Their absences pressed against me, sharp as ribs. And for the first time, I understood what Mara meant about carrying them as fire. Not relief, not healing, but a wound sharpened into purpose. Tomorrow the world might ignore the stream. Governments might deny, bury, distort. But silence was broken now, cracked open like bone. And inside the crack, a flame waited. The feed glowed in the hollow like a fire that burned without heat. People clustered tight around the boy's laptop, their voices a low storm. Every few seconds the screen refreshed, guards dragging another body, floodlights glinting off rifles, smoke bleeding from pits. The truth looped endlessly, undeniable. But truth didn't bring peace. "It's out there now," a man muttered, his hands trembling. "Someone will see. Someone has to help." "No one's coming," a woman snapped. Her eyes burned, her arms wrapped around a child who wouldn't stop staring at the screen. "You think they don't already know? They knew before we did. They let it happen." A third voice rose, harsh with anger. "Then we fight. Proof means nothing if we sit here waiting for the next sweep. We take rifles, we burn Echo, 9 to the ground." Shouts answered, some in agreement, some in fear. The cavern filled with noise, grief curdling into fury, fury clashing with despair. Bomber Jacket stood apart, arms crossed, jaw clenched. He hadn't spoken since the tunnel, but his silence felt like stone dropped in water, ripples spreading. The boy defended his laptop like a shield, adjusting wires, checking the signal every few seconds. "It's still live. Look. They can't cut it. People are watching. That's what matters." "Watching won't save us," someone shouted back. I pressed my palms against my knees, the noise crashing around me. My head throbbed. Every voice was right, and every voice was wrong. Proof mattered, yes. But proof wouldn't stop rifles, or fill empty bellies, or bring back the scarred woman. Mara climbed the crate again, her presence cutting through the storm like a blade. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. Her voice carried anyway. "Listen." The noise faltered, though anger still flickered in eyes and fists. "They know," Mara said, steady. "Don't fool yourselves. The moment that feed went live, they knew. And they will come. Not in weeks, not in days. In hours. Retaliation is certain." The crowd stilled, the words dropping like stones. Fear flickered sharp. "So what do we do?" someone demanded. Mara's gaze swept the cavern. "We prepare. We pack. We hide deeper. And if we must, we fight. But not blind. Not as a mob. As one." The word hung. One. Silence stretched, broken only by the generator's hum. Then arguments erupted again. Some shouted agreement, rallying to her fire. Others muttered that hiding only delayed death. A few whispered about leaving entirely, slipping back through the tunnels, risking the surface alone. Mara let them argue. She didn't crush dissent, didn't silence it. She stood steady, letting the storm churn itself ragged. I couldn't. The noise scraped raw. I staggered away from the crowd, toward the cavern wall. My breath rasped, my chest hollow. Mara found me again, as if drawn by my fracture. "You hear them?" I laughed bitter, sharp. "Hard not to. They're afraid," she said. "So am I." Her eyes softened, though her jaw stayed hard. "Good. Fear means you understand the stakes. But fear alone won't guide you. You need to choose how you'll carry it." I shook my head. "I don't know how to choose. Proof is streaming, yes, but at the cost of her." At the cost of, my throat closed. I forced the word. The scarred woman. And tomorrow it'll be more. Always more. Mara didn't look away. Always more. That's war. But without proof, her death would vanish into silence. With proof, it burns. That's the difference. I pressed my hands against my face, grit grinding into my skin. Then why doesn't it feel like enough? Because it never will. Her answer was brutal, but true. Proof couldn't measure against absence. No truth could fill the space the scarred woman left behind. But Mara was right. Absence carried silently was erasure. Absence carried forward was fire. The arguments behind us swelled again, some voices cracking, others hard as stone. Mara straightened. "Retaliation will come," she said quietly. "When it does, they'll need someone who doesn't break. Someone who can hold them steady. That's you." I stared hollow. "Me? You carried the rig," she said. "You carried ghosts. You think you're broken, but that's why they'll follow you. Broken carries weight." Her words settled heavy, both burden and strange balm. Around us, the hollow roiled with division. Hope, rage, despair colliding like storm waves. And in the middle, Mara's fire burned, pulling me into its orbit whether I wanted it or not. Retaliation was coming. Unity was the only shield. And for the first time, I felt the shape of my place in it. Not ready, not steady, but necessary. It began with vibration, a low tremor through the cavern floor, rattling tin cups and loose stones. At first it sounded like the generator straining, but then it grew, heavier, rhythmic. Boots, many of them. The hollow froze. Dozens of faces lifted, eyes wide, every conversation severed. Then came the second sound, metallic thunder, distant but closing. Vehicles, engines reverberating through the tunnels like a war drum. "They found us," Bomber Jacket muttered. His voice cracked the silence like a gunshot. Chaos erupted. Survivors surged in every direction, grabbing packs, dragging children, clutching rifles and knives. Voices overlapped, some shouting to run, others screaming to fight. The air thickened with panic, sweat, and fear. The boy clung to his laptop, cables trailing like veins. "The feed's still live," he shouted desperate. "If they come, the world will see. We can't cut it now." Mara seized a rifle, chambering around with brutal precision. Her voice cut through the storm. "Positions. Get the children deeper. Runners to the eastern shaft. Fighters with me." Her steadiness anchored some, but not all. A woman clutched her son, sobbing. An old man tried to crawl away, shaking too hard to stand. People collided, stumbled, trampled supplies in their scramble. I stood paralyzed, the tremors crawling up my legs. Boots, engines, rifles closing fast. My chest locked, panic rising. Then Mara's hand slammed my shoulder. "With me." Her eyes burned, flint striking steel. No time for hesitation. My body lurched after hers before my mind caught up. We sprinted to the western choke point, where the tunnel narrowed into a jagged throat. Bomber Jacket was already there, setting a heavy rifle against sandbags. Others crouched behind makeshift barricades, crates, overturned tables, slabs of rock. The scarred woman's absence was a gap you could feel, a silence among the fighters. The vibrations deepened. Shouts echoed down the tunnel, clipped commands and voices hard as stone. Floodlights cut into the dark, beams sweeping like blades. "They're here," Bomber Jacket growled. I dropped behind the barricade, my chest heaving. My hands found a rifle someone shoved into them. Cold metal, heavier than training. My palms slicked with sweat. Mara crouched beside me, calm even in the tremor of her breath. "Remember your rhythm. Panic steals seconds. Breathe steady. Squeeze, don't yank." Her voice steadied me. Not enough to kill fear, but enough to hold it in place. Then the tunnel roared. The first flashbang burst, white light tearing through the dark, followed by thunder that rattled teeth. Ears rang, vision seared. I staggered, rifle slipping. Shapes poured from the tunnel, soldiers in black armor, rifles raised, visors reflecting floodlight glare. Gunfire cracked. Bomber Jacket's heavy rifle spat flame, cutting down the first two. Mara's shots were precise, surgical. Others fired wild, bullets sparking stone, smoke choking the air. I froze. My rifle bucked in my grip, bullets spraying high, useless. Panic surged. A soldier lunged through the smoke, visor gleaming, rifle raised. Instinct shoved me forward. I slammed the butt of my rifle into his chest, knocking him back into the choke. Mara finished him with a single shot. "Focus," she barked. "You're here. Stay here." Her voice tethered me again. I sucked in a breath, pressed my back against stone, steadied my aim. The tunnel became thunder. Muzzle flashes painted the walls, screams bled into smoke. Sandbags tore under gunfire, dirt spraying like blood. The air stank of cordite, sweat, and fear. "Hold them!" Bomber Jacket roared, his rifle hammering. The boy appeared at the barricade, laptop still clutched, wires trailing. "It's all live," he shouted over the din. "The world is seeing this, right now. Don't stop." I wanted to scream at him to run, to hide, but his face burned with something fiercer than fear. Proof mattered more than his life. Another flashbang rolled into the choke. Bomber jacket kicked it back, the explosion rattling deeper in the tunnel. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the next wave came. Black armor surged, rifles barking. Fighters fell around me, one clutching his throat, another screaming as his leg buckled. Blood pooled into the dust. Mara shoved me down. A bullet cracked stone where my head had been. "Stay low." The barricade shuddered under impact. Splinters cut my face. My rifle trembled in my hands, but I held it steady this time. Breathed. Squeezed. Fired. A visor cracked. A soldier fell. The rush of it shocked me. Not triumph. Not relief. Just the grim realization. I could do this. I could kill. But more boots thundered. More voices shouted. More shadows filled the tunnel. "They'll breach," Bomber Jacket shouted. His rifle clicked empty. He grabbed a sidearm, snarling like an animal. Mara's eyes swept the barricade, then flicked to me. "This is just the beginning," she said. "They won't stop until we're buried. Hold now, or none of us see tomorrow." The barricade groaned under impact. Splinters flew. Smoke thickened. The hollow shook. And then the breach came. The barricade shattered. Soldiers poured through the choke, black armor gleaming in the strobe of gunfire. Rifles barked, flashbangs screamed, the hollow dissolving into smoke and blood. I fired until the rifle bucked empty, then swung it like a club, splintering it against a visor. The soldier staggered. Mara finished him with a knife to the throat. "Hold," she roared, voice cutting through the thunder. But we weren't holding. We were breaking. Screams rose from the cavern, women, children, elders, trapped in the crush of bodies trying to flee deeper. Rifles rattled. Stones split. The hollow itself seemed to cry out. The boy stood on a crate, laptop glowing in his arms, screaming over the chaos. "It's live. They're seeing this. The world is watching." Soldiers surged toward him. Bomber Jacket tackled too, his sidearm flashing, but another broke free, rifle raised. I didn't think. I lunged, slamming into the soldier's knees. We hit the dirt hard, his rifle clattering away. His gauntlet hand clamped my throat, crushing. Spots burst behind my eyes. Then Mara's boot smashed his visor, once, twice, until the glass cracked and the man fell limp. She yanked me up, her grip iron. "On your feet." Blood streaked her face, hair matted, but her eyes still burned. The hollow became slaughter. Gunfire deafened. Smoke blinded. Survivors fought with rifles, knives, bare fists. Children screamed, dragged by mothers toward tunnels that no longer promised safety. And still the boy's laptop streamed, its glow almost holy in the filth. "Fall back," Mara shouted, rallying what fighters remained. Bomber Jacket staggered to her side, blood pouring from his arm, but still firing, still defiant. We retreated into the cavern's heart. The soldiers pressed, relentless. A grenade rolled across the stone, the blast tearing through crates and bodies alike. Dust and screams merged into one choking roar. I stumbled, ears ringing, vision swimming. A soldier loomed through the haze, bayonet flashing. Instinct dragged my hands up, grappling the blade, steel slicing my palms. Pain flared white. Then the scarred woman's ghost was in me, her shove, her roar. I twisted, drove the bayonet into the soldier's throat. Hot spray hit my face. He fell. I stayed standing. Not victory, just survival. The boy screamed again, not in fear but in exultation. They can't shut it down. Everyone's seeing. A bullet cut him short. He crumpled, the laptop clattering from his hands. His small body folded beside it, blood spreading fast. "No!" My voice tore raw. But the screen stayed lit. The feed held. The camera at echo, 9 still streamed, proof bleeding across the world. The boy's body slumped over the crate, his last act carried forward by the machine he refused to let go. Mara's face cracked, grief, fury, fire all in one. She seized me by the collar. "Take it! Keep it alive!" I grabbed the laptop, cradling it against my chest. Warm. Sticky with the boy's blood. But alive. Soldiers closed in. Bomber Jacket fell, roaring as rifles tore him apart. Mara stood over him, firing until her rifle clicked empty, then swinging it like a blade. She was a storm, terrible, unstoppable, but storms burn out. She met my eyes through the smoke. "Carry it," her last command. Then the soldiers swarmed her. I ran, not in cowardice. Not this time. I ran because Ghost demanded it. The scarred woman, the boy, Mara, the braid, all of them pressing me forward. Bullets cracked stone around me. Smoke seared my throat. The cavern collapsed into chaos behind me. I dove into a side tunnel, clutching the laptop. Darkness swallowed me. Boots thundered in pursuit. But the feed still glowed, casting light on the walls, on my bloodied hands, on the path ahead. I didn't know if I'd survive another minute. I didn't know if the world would act, or if it would turn away. But I knew this: silence was broken. Ghosts were carried. Proof was fire. And fire, once lit, never dies quietly. I crawled blind, clutching the laptop to my chest. Its glow was the only light, blue-white across mud and blood, my own breath rasping in my ears. Every muscle screamed. My hands tore open on stone. My knees became raw meat. Behind me, the hollow collapsed into silence, not peace, but absence. The screams faded, the gunfire smothered. Only Ghosts followed now, heavy on my shoulders. At one bend, I thought I heard pursuit, boots pounding, voices shouting. I scrambled harder, lungs searing. But the sound never came closer. Maybe they'd sealed the tunnels behind me. Maybe they had enough corpses already. The feed never blinked out. The laptop's glow hummed steady. The boy's blood had dried tacky on the keys, sticky against my palm. Still, the screen showed Echo 9, bodies dragged, pits burning, guards pacing their routines as if slaughter was a shift like any other. Proof still lived, and so I kept crawling. When the tunnel finally spat me out, the surface greeted me with ash. I lay sprawled on cracked asphalt, sucking air that stank of smoke and metal. The night sky hung low, a bruise-colored ceiling with no stars. Buildings leaned half-collapsed, windows shattered, roofs caved. Street signs rusted crooked. What trees remained stood black and skeletal, branches clawing at the air. Silence stretched across the ruins, broken only by the moan of distant wind through hollowed streets. I staggered to my feet, legs trembling. My body swayed as if drunk. I clutched the laptop tighter, afraid the world might vanish if I let go. Everywhere I looked was absence. No people, no movement. Just husks of lives burned away. Cars left mid-flight, doors open, seats coated with dust. A playground half buried in rubble, swings twisted in wind. Graffiti scrawled across a wall, borders sealed, pray you're inside. I laughed, cracked and hollow. The sound startled even me. I stumbled through the ruins until I found shelter, a half-collapsed office, its windows shattered but walls still upright. Inside, the air was cooler, shadows thick. A desk lay overturned, papers scattered, a chair snapped in half. It smelled of mold and copper. I sank against the desk, the laptop balanced on my knees. My hands trembled as I checked the screen. Still live. The rig's lens hadn't shifted. The world still watched Echo 9. Asobi krake auchiofimi, umbiding. Relief, grief, everything tangled. Proof was alive. The hollow was dead. I pressed my forehead to the blood-slick keys. You did it, I whispered to the boy who wasn't here. You kept it alive. Ghosts crowded closer, the scarred woman shoving me forward, bomber jacket roaring defiance, Mara's eyes blazing through the smoke. All of them gone. All of them here. The wind moaned through the broken window, carrying ash inside. I clutched the laptop tighter, rocking like a man cradling a child. The hollow was ash, but the fire burned on the screen, and I was the last one left to carry it. The laptop buzzed faintly in my lap, its glow the only heartbeat left in the ruins. Hours passed, maybe days, I couldn't measure. I sat in the office husk, watching Echo 9 replay itself on the feed. Guards dragging, pits burning, rifles barking. A machine loop of horror, endless and unbroken. At some point, voices bled through the static. Not from the rig, but from outside signals. Radio chatter bleeding into the feed. Echoes of a world I hadn't touched in months. Unverified footage, reports of manipulation. Cannot confirm origin, security breach suspected. Atrocities, if true, a violation beyond measure. Propaganda, designed to destabilize. The voices overlapped, colliding. Some horrified, some dismissive, most wrapped in hedged words. No certainty. No action. I laughed once, a jagged sound. Proof streamed live, undeniable. And still they argued about whether it was real. I imagined Mara hearing those voices. Her jaw would set, her eyes sharp, her voice cutting like stone. Of course they argue. Truth isn't enough. Truth must wound, must force a choice. But Mara wasn't here. Only me. I pressed my palms into my eyes until sparks flared. I carried it, I whispered to the dark. I carried it, but it's not enough. The laptop's glow reflected off broken glass, painting my face pale. For the first time, I saw myself as the world might, mud-caked, blood-smeared, eyes hollow. A survivor, yes, but one no one would believe without voice. The ghosts pressed close. The scarred woman, shoving me forward. Bomber jacket, roaring. The boy, clutching his laptop with both hands. Mara, her eyes steady in the smoke. Their absence screamed louder than proof. I opened the laptop's mic. My hands shook as I leaned close, my breath fogging the cracked screen. This is, my voice cracked, raw from smoke and dust. I swallowed hard. This is testimony. I drew a breath, steady as I could. My name doesn't matter. What matters is this. I was at Delta 12. I saw them drag families to the gate. I heard the lies on the broadcast, telling us it was relocation protection. But I saw the truth. The pits. The fire. The silence. My voice grew steadier, each word pulled like a stone from my chest. I carried a rig into Echo 9. You're watching it now. This isn't propaganda. This isn't fabrication. It's the world you built, the world you sealed, the world you let happen. These faces, they were alive. Now they're ash. And if you do nothing, you burn with them. I leaned closer, my whisper sharp as a knife. Their silence will not save you. Their silence will bury you. The ghosts crowded closer, their weight pressing into my back, my shoulders, my chest. Not suffocating, steadying. I finished. I carry them forward. Now you must too. The mic clicked silent. My words joined the stream, bleeding into the feed, carried alongside proof. Not just images now. A voice. My voice. I sat back, trembling. Exhaustion pulled at me, but something steadier burned beneath. The boy's laptop hummed on, stubborn and alive. Proof streamed. Truth breathed. The world could argue. The world could deny. But silence was broken now, and I had spoken into the crack. Time dissolved into miles. I walked through ruins, the boy's laptop pressed against my chest like a reliquary. Its glow was my only compass. I slept in burned-out cars, drank rainwater from rusted gutters, ate whatever scraps I scavenged from empty stores. My body wasted to bone and sinew, but I kept moving. Always forward. Everywhere I went, I carried the feed. At first, no one believed. The few survivors I stumbled across flinched at the sight of the screen, muttering that it was doctored, planted, a trick. But then they kept watching. Their faces shifted as the loop played, guards dragging, pits burning, smoke rising. One woman, cradling her infant, whispered through tears, Echo 9. So it's true. Later, I found walls scrawled with graffiti. Echo 9 burns. No more gates. They knew. The words spread like cracks through the ruins, jagged proof that silence had fractured. Still doubt gnawed. For every wall screaming truth, another carried denial. For every survivor whispering Echo 9, another spat that it was propaganda. Proof spread, but faith fractured. Weeks passed. My beard grew ragged, my hands calloused, my eyes hollow. I walked like a ghost, but the laptop still glowed, its battery an impossible miracle. The boy's fire refused to die. Until it did. I woke one morning in the husk of a church, light filtering through shattered stained glass. I opened the laptop, my ritual, but this time, the screen flickered once, twice, then dimmed to black. Dead. The silence hit harder than any bullet. My breath caught, my chest collapsing inward. I shook the machine, slapped it, begged it. Nothing. The feed was gone. The last I closed. I sat there for hours, staring at the lifeless screen. All those miles, all that blood, all those ghosts, and now silence threatened to swallow it again. Despair clawed at me. Maybe it had all been for nothing. Maybe the world had seen and turned away, as it always had. Maybe Mara was wrong. Maybe truth didn't matter. I pressed the laptop to my forehead, whispering apologies to the boy, to the scarred woman, to Bomber Jacket, to Mara. I carried it, I said, voice breaking. But I couldn't keep it alive. Then faintly a sound. Children's laughter. I stumbled outside, blinking against the gray light. Across the church wall, fresh paint gleamed, a mural. Crude, crooked, but alive with color. It showed figures, one with a braid, one scarred, one broad-shouldered, one small with a glowing box in his hands. Ghosts. My ghosts. Below them, in dripping letters, Echo 9. Survivors stood there, brushes still wet, faces smeared with paint. They looked at me not with fear, not with pity, but with recognition. You carried it, one said softly. Now we carry it too. Something shifted in my chest. Not relief, not healing, but a spark. The fire hadn't died with the laptop. It had already spread. I pressed my bloody palms against the mural, leaving 2 red prints beneath the ghosts. A signature of sorts. Proof that I'd been there. Proof that they still burned forward. The silence wasn't whole anymore. It was cracked. And fire loves cracks. I don't know how much time has passed. Weeks, months, maybe years. Out here, the sky doesn't change. Always gray, always heavy, like the world forgot what stars look like. My body is smaller now. Bones press against skin, ribs like fence posts. My legs tremble with every mile. But still I walk. Always forward. The laptop is dead, its screen cracked, battery long gone. I carry it anyway. A husk, yes, but a holy relic too. Blood still stains the keys, a fossil of the boy who held it tighter than life. People don't need to see the glow anymore. They've already seen the fire. But I keep it close because it reminds me I once carried proof, not just ghosts. I've learned to leave pieces behind. In burned houses, I scratch words into the walls, Echo 9. In abandoned stations, I carve names, Mara. Bomber Jacket. The scarred woman. The boy. The girl with the braid. I leave them where others might find them. Proof that silence never took them. Sometimes I meet survivors. Not many. Faces hollow, bodies thin, but eyes bright. They whisper the word now without fear, Echo 9. They paint it on ruins. They tell children the story. The checkpoints aren't just fences anymore. They're warnings. Wounds. Fire scars that remind the world it can still bleed. The world hasn't healed. Maybe it never will. But it remembers. That's enough. I've started recording, using scraps of old equipment I find in ruins. Static heavy, faint, maybe never heard. But I speak anyway. My name still doesn't matter. I rasp into a cracked recorder one night, sitting beneath the skeletal remains of a highway sign. What matters is this: silence is broken. You can deny it, you can bury it, but you cannot unsee it. Echo 9 lives in all of us now. In every whisper, in every mural, in every name carved into stone. I cough blood, wipe it with the back of my hand. I carried ghosts. They burned in me until I couldn't hold them anymore. Now they burn in you. Don't let them go out. The recorder clicks off. I keep it with me tucked beside the laptop. Proof doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to endure. Tonight, I see it ahead. Another checkpoint. Floodlights stabbing the horizon, rifles glinting, fences slicing the land. Not Echo 9, but the same machine, the same hunger. I stand on the ridge, the wind cold against my face. The laptop weighs heavy in my arms, though it hasn't glowed in months. My body shakes, thin and weak, but my legs carry me down the slope anyway. Ghosts walk with me. Mara at my side, her braid swinging, rifle steady. The scarred woman behind, her spear tapping stone. Bomber Jacket's laugh rumbles even now. The boy darts ahead, lantern in hand. And the girl with the braid, the one from Delta, 12, turns to look at me, her eyes no longer empty but burning. They walk with me, not as absence, but as fire. I don't know what waits at the checkpoint. Bullets, most likely. Maybe pits. Maybe silence. But silence doesn't scare me anymore. Because silence is broken, and fire keeps burning.